everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me. Wanted to make a quick video this morning before I started my day. Kind of sort of rolled out of bed, so sorry. But I felt inspired to create a video for you guys, actually talking about the current conjunction that's happening between Mars, Venus, and Pluto in Capricorn. I'm wondering how everybody is doing. How are you feeling this conjunction? Let me know. Happy March, everybody. It's almost the new moon in Pisces, and the month is going to be rather interesting. To be honest with you, I'm really a fan of the first 2 weeks of March. It's kind of more the second half where things kind of get a little hairy. If you guys want more insight into that, check out my horoscopes or check out my March 2022 monthly address. All right, so I felt inspired to talk to you guys about this, and I actually want to start more with a quote. So I'll kind of go in and out of a couple things, and I'll also wrap with a sutra that I want to talk to you guys about that I pulled for today in regards to this conjunction. I'm sure you guys have heard of the term, all is fair in love and war, right? Me being a Libra rising and an Aries moon in the 7th house, that's like my favorite. It's probably something eventually I'll get tattooed on my body. It's really one of my favorite quotes. But when I thought about this quote, it actually came up more because of something I heard in Bridgerton. I don't know if you guys have watched that show on Netflix. I'm a sucker for any time period piece personally. But from Bridgerton, there was this quote, and it kind of came to mind to me. It came to my mind this morning, and the quote reads, "All is fair in love and war. But some battles leave no victor. Only a trail of broken hearts that make us wonder if the price we pay is worth the fight." So I'll say that again so it can really sink in. All is fair in love and war, but some battles leave no victor. Only a trail of broken hearts that make us wonder if the price we pay is ever worth the fight, right? I believe that was something that was like published in like the little newspaper where they, all have their gossip, the gossip column, and nobody knows who it is, right? I won't give you guys a spoiler alert, don't worry. But it got me thinking about some of the things that are going on as a result of this conjunction in the world, but also in the lives of my clients, in my life, and it's a lot of like pick your battles right now, okay? Really pick your battles right now and realize that a lot of the fight, the conflict that's going on, the power struggles, the issues, not getting along with one another, not really sharing the same value systems, or tastes or preferences, or arguing about money, arguing about bills, arguing about how we get out of this broken financial system. Well, the good news is help is on the way. But this is, once again, like that death rattle of like the final swings of either particular people or countries in power, financial systems in power, before everything really kind of erupts and we can start to get into the process of building a new system. But it's not just about money, right? It's not about money. It's also about love and passion. Apparently, the origins of the all is fair in love and war statement actually comes from poems that were written by John Lyly, and it was published back in 1579. Now, eventually, it ended up coming back into another novel by Edward Smedley in 1850, and it was a book that was about some like younger, schoolboy or something. I haven't read any one of these books. I'm just giving you guys the reference of where this term comes from. But when we dig deeper and we think about the Bridgerton quote, which really expanded on the fact that when we say all is fair in love and war, it can suggest that like no acts are too terrible when it comes to going after the person or the thing that you love, right? And whether this is a fight, a conflict within a relationship, or quite literally war and having enemies. So when we think about this, people will say this kind of almost as like an excuse for somebody's like, bad behavior. Like we want to justify the bad behavior. And you can look at this across the board with some stuff that's going on in the world, justification for why we are starting wars, why we have always started wars, why we feel entitled to things. And I guess really the question is while we can use that as an excuse for like, well, if you're in love and you're, it's a passionate act, everything's fair. But really the question is it worth the price, right? Is it worth whatever we have to do in order to win whatever literal or little wars that we've got going on in our life right now? And do we have just cause to be starting conflict? And I think in so many ways, the statement doesn't really excuse it. It really should get us thinking about whether or not it's worth picking some of these battles, literally or figuratively, right? Just food for thought. Here's an example. I wake up this morning, I look at the news. The Russian ruble is now the equivalent of 1 US cent. Now, some might say that's not a big deal because I think it was like, I asked my husband this morning, he was like, I think it was like somewhere around 170 per whatever to the dollar or the equivalent. So now it's 1 US cent. And also the Russian stock market is closed. The price for starting war, huh? This is the energy of the Mars, Venus, Pluto conjunction. People are passionate. They're really passionate about taking charge, taking power, taking control. And when that passion is taken too far and it's in connection, Venus and Mars with Pluto, we can see some really dark, destructive breakdowns and things that end, die off, transform. And it's no surprise to me, because I've been talking about this all week, that you see tons of money that's now being funneled in into crypto, into the crypto markets that are coming from Russian currency, because essentially they're being cut off in so many ways from the rest of the world. Okay, so this Mars-Venus-Pluto conjunction is going to continue from now through about March 6th. So this is a time to watch. This is a time to watch whether we can find peace, if Venus can actually kind of cool off the drive, the power, hunger, crazy type stuff that's going on with Mars and Pluto, or if it's going to become more devastating and more destructive, because that is possible as well. But conjunctions are new beginnings, So when we have a conjunction between planets, especially when there's any conversation happening with an outer planet, like Pluto, it's the opportunity for the planets to be reborn and for it to be a new beginning. So I look at the fact that it's all shaping up and we're seeing this conjunction really happen between 26, 27, 28, 29 degrees of Capricorn. And if you guys think back to what happened in 2020, when we had Saturn in these late degrees of Capricorn, there was people saying, build the wall. We were having boundaries shut down. We were having borders shut down. It was almost this moment of like a power takeover, right? It kind of felt like this very kind of militant state in the world, at least from my perspective, of just having control taken. So I want you guys to think about that. I also want you guys to think about the fact that when we look at astrology and we start getting out of this kind of like more egotistic, super overly fixated astrology that's purely just about our sun sign or about how it affects us, let's step out of that for a second. Let's look at the astrology of the world. The Mars-Venus-Pluto conjunction is 12 houses away from Aquarius, right? It's behind Aquarius. So it's as far as you can get from Aquarius where Saturn is. So wars and conflict and financial breakdown are basically being set up. Is it over resources? Is it over steel? Is it over military control? Is it trying to kill off and possibly disturb other darker, sinister things that are going on? Is there some cover-up because there's a sex scandal that's happening within the political realm? Is there more than what meets the eye? Are you guys doing your research and looking into actually what's going on in regards to the background of both Russia and Ukraine? I'm neutral. I'm not getting involved. I'm just looking at the astrology, just asking some questions. For me, I look at this and I go, this is kind of the setup, right? To use whatever is going on in this conflict in Europe to basically create a narrative for what's about to come, for why there may be, high gas or oil prices, why we may actually see some limitations in regards to finances, why there's going to be some kind of cyber crackdown or crypto crackdown, or yeah, there's something coming, guys. So it's not exactly what we think it is, right? So there is the potential with this conjunction globally and personally to transform our financial assets, our relationships, our view of love and passion and desire. Now, while Mars is blazing hot passion, it's masculine energy, it's military, it's people in uniforms, it's movement, it's on the ground, it's hot. Venus is about peace, beauty, money, resources. It's more feminine. And then we see Pluto getting in the mix, and he's definitely a little bit more dark, dangerous, sinister, and really focused on control, right? So under the guise of Capricorn, really we're wrapping up a story that began in mid-December of 2021. We've seen Mercury, Mars, Venus all come into conjunction with Pluto, and all retrograde. Venus and Mars have been in Capricorn, but Mercury and Venus retrograded over these degrees where Pluto is. So it's wrapping up a storyline, really, that's been brewing for quite some time. It's been going on for a couple of months. Now, does this suggest that tensions were rising at this time, plans were being made, stuff was kind of being hidden, maybe perhaps there was an agenda? I think so. And what lies beyond the Capricorn territory once we move into Aquarius energy, which is very soon? Yes, Aquarius season is over, but Mars, Venus, Saturn are all going to hang out in Aquarius. We're also kind of on the brink right now of moving out of the, Capricorn energy and moving more so into Aquarius and Pisces. And today, in the next couple of days, Mercury will conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. That's kind of why I wanted to put this out now. So what lies beyond the Capricorn territory and Aquarius energy? And when we see Mars and Venus ingress into Aquarius, the fixed air sign. And, what will happen when Mars and Venus meet Saturn at the end of March, going into the beginning of April? Will it be unlimited liberation? Perhaps. Aquarius is tolerant, they're inclusive, they're above all focused on freedom and equality. And I think what we're going to see here very soon is like an integration of the feminine and the masculine archetypes, right? That's really what's going to happen, because when we go into Aquarius, it's more not so much focused on gender, not so much focused on society and what's traditional. It's focused on what the individual needs are and how we are joining together and changing, the masses are really changing the way that we look at Mars and Venus stereotypes. Now, this can be liberation from stereotypical assigned gender roles, society's expectations when it comes to relationships. We can think more freely and outside of the box when it comes to relationships, money, and resources in general. Our values are very much due for an upgrade. And that's definitely going to happen when we see the conjunctions to Saturn, but it's reinforced with the squares to the nodes. So I want to read you guys something from, this is a book of mine. Lots of me showing you guys books. There's a book video coming. I'm just waiting to get my Amazon affiliate link. The Radiance Sutras, 112 Gateways to the Yoga and Wonder of Delight. Lauren Roche, PhD. I actually got this book a couple years ago when I was going through a death midwife program, and I found it very helpful just for reflection and sitting with people who are in grief and who are going through difficult and challenging times. Death, basically, right? When family members are, having to sit with their loved ones as they're transitioning, or when people are maybe afraid of end-of-life stuff and need some peace and something to kind of meditate on, to be able to remind them that death is a transition, it's a process. It's very similar to giving birth. Life and death are very much the same. And we live in a culture where we worship birth and new life, but we have a fear of death, and I don't understand that. I'm a Sun Pluto, you know, Mercury. So I'm very fascinated by that, very fascinated by the process of death. But the idea actually behind Pluto and the idea of letting go and this almost like volcanic eruption that happens when we release energy and we expel that, similar to, you know, I guess birth and contractions, or, you know, orgasms, when we look at, you know, the energetic exchange that happens between two people. This is important stuff to be talking about right now, because while we have this buildup of Mars and Venus and Pluto, it literally is this energy. It's volcanic, right? And it can reach a boiling point where it can become too much. It can become scary. It can become cruel and devastating and dangerous, right? If power continues the path that it's going, where people are becoming so power hungry, or so possessive or fixated on control. So we're going to see things like jealousy, anger, violence, aggression. That's natural when we see these conjunctions. But it's happening in a feminine sign, Capricorn. And Venus, I think, does represent very much the feminine of basically the anger and the rage and the pain that may come from some of these conjunctions. And it can lead people to do some very intense things, both out in the world, but also in regards to their relationships. This can materialize as like lots of issues with domestic violence and crime and police brutality and all kinds of things. So we want to, as we walk through this energy for the next couple of days, just be super mindful that that's out there. And you can be a warrior for peace and love, and change and transformation and kind of breaking these patterns. Or you can be somebody who is just navigating and kind of bumping along through life and running into that energy and then putting it back out there. So awareness is everything. And I think that it's kind of interesting looking at like the pain pleasure aspect of it too, because it can be liberation that comes from this, right? So I do feel like it may be some kind of liberating situation in Europe. It may be some liberating situation financially, but I also feel like the darker side of some of the stuff that's going on right now is the narrative or the excuses for whatever is going on to be the cause of limitations and restrictions that are coming. So to apply it in a real life situation, it's well, you ran up the credit cards and you didn't pay me back, so therefore, you know, I can't loan you money anymore. You know, cheated on me, and you then got aggressive with me when I tried to confront you, and therefore I can't be in the relationship anymore. This is kind of like the tipping point, especially for people who are very Libra, Taurus, Scorpio kind of ruled, right? These sun, moons, and risings. Or if you have a lot of Venus, Mars, or Pluto contacts in your chart, you're going to feel this energy kind of erupting. And, you know, I'm not somebody who's died. I'm not somebody who's given birth. But I know, having been present for a lot of these life events for a lot of people in my life, that it's almost like you can have a lot of relief from actually really just letting go and choosing not to resist and not fighting fire with fire. And whether that's getting more into your body and breathing, whether that's really focusing on transmuting anger or pain, and learning not to react, but learning to, you know, be an actor, not a reactor. We are only in control of ourselves right now. And all emotions are a derivative of love or fear. Okay, everything. I don't care. You can argue with this with people have tried to argue this with me until the cows come home. Everything is a derivative of that. So if it doesn't feel like love, if it doesn't feel like empowerment, uplifting, then everything else is going to fall under fear. Now, kind of like the same stages of grief, right? Just kind of talking on like the Pluto aspect. Grief, whether it's like, you know, not wanting to accept or acknowledge that, you know, a relationship is over and you're getting divorced, or not wanting to accept the fact that something may not be good for you, a habit, a pattern, or just a bad, you know, job breakup, whatever it is, you know, not wanting to acknowledge that something's over, or something or someone has died. So there's many stages of grief. Like there's the mad, sad, angry, you know, willing to negotiate. And then finally there's that relief and acceptance and acknowledgement that, no, it's time for it to go. So there's a lot of healing in this conjunction. There can be a lot of breakdown before there's breakthrough. And for those of you guys who are really feeling that, I just want you to know that it is possible for us to have a lot of relief from just releasing, right? And it can be very emotional. We can be very passionate. We can get angry and yell, or we can cry and kind of break down and have that release. So try to be gentle with yourselves throughout this process. So let me get to my sutra. And it's interesting because I like to do like, I like to like pick a book and then sometimes open up a page. It's kind of like, you know, book divination, just to get guidance as to, you know, what to be paying attention to today. And honestly, it couldn't have been more perfect. So this is page 113 in the book, if you guys have it or if you end up getting it. And it's sutra number 78. Desire, lust, and longing, anger humming in your blood, confusion, jealousy, bewilderment, swirling in your head. Catch the first hint as passion rise, the first quickening heartbeat, embrace that vibrancy with a mind vast as the sky. Witness the elemental motion of emotion. Fire burning, illuminating, water gushing, cleansing, air inspiring, soothing, earth supporting, holding, space expanding, embracing. You are in the temple of desire. Go deeper and rest in essence. Awake to the infinite spiritual energy surging into form. Pretty appropriate, huh? Definitely just like after reading it, kind of sitting with it, I was like, okay, this is the holding space time, you know? I've talked a lot about Capricorn in recent weeks in my videos, whether it's the Pluto retro, or the Venus retrograde video that I did, or, you know, I mean, it's dating all the way back to December, but I will give you guys a reminder for each and every one of the 12 rising signs, where this is taking place for you, what area of your life is having a breakdown, breakthrough, what's being cleansed, what's being purged, what needs healing, what needs patience, right? And I think maybe if you're experiencing some of the lower octaves of this conjunction, anger, frustration, jealousy, possessiveness, fear, unwillingness to let go, I think if you ask those feelings really what it is that they're trying to tell you, and you really sit down with that grief or that pain and ask it what it wants, you will have a breakthrough. And that's where we are going to see the second half of this month and going into April, that there is an upgrade, right? Liberation, really liberation, unlimited liberation. That's what we're going to see from Mars and Venus going into Aquarius. Socially, economically, spiritually, emotionally, relationships. We need to see more men that are willing to embrace the feminine energy and being softer and kinder and more aware and more sympathetic and understanding and emotional. And we need to see more women who are willing to step up and not necessarily be angry, but be in their power and be willing to transform and help us, you know, lead the way, I think, for peace. That's really what I think this is about. So I'm hoping that you guys are able to do that. Here are the 12 rising signs. So listen for your rising sign. People ask me, whole sign? Yes, sure. Yes, this applies to your whole sign, but if it's, if you want to look at Placidus, you can do that too. Just a recap of where this storyline has been going really since about December of 2021 that you've been working through. And now this is the climax where you're either building it up into something stronger or breaking it down and moving through major transformations. So for Aries and Aries rising, this is your 10th house of career. So you're making big moves when it comes to your career, breakthroughs, perhaps, you know, finally quitting a job to start something with your friends and your groups and your associations. Perhaps maybe you're getting real serious about your goals and your desires, and there's just a big shift in regards to how you're showing up in the world, whether that's in regards to your professional life or just how you identify in the world in general. So wield that power appropriately. For Taurus and Taurus rising, this is happening for you in your 9th house of your belief system. So a lot of this revolves around where you're traveling, where you're going to school, what you believe in. If you have found a new belief system, if you're throwing away an old belief system and you're adopting something new. Some of you guys are graduating from programs. Some of you guys are publishing. Some of you guys are teaching. Some of you guys are finally finding God and what it means to let go of this feeling that life has to be tough or life has to be difficult, right? And you're moving further into a new identity. So you're possibly now moving into a new field. Now you're doing some new kind of work. You're working with a group. There's an upgrade that's coming. Maybe you were single, now you're married. Maybe you're married, now you're divorced. Maybe you're just really focusing on aligning yourself with other professionals who want to do the kind of work that you want to do so you can have the freedom that you're looking for, okay? For Gemini and Gemini rising, this is happening in your 8th house. So this is all about I think really moving through, especially themes of death, transformation, transition, you know, insurance, joint resources, inheritances, bonuses, but it's deeper than that. It's much deeper than that. It's highlighting Mars and Venus, and that's bringing up for you very specifically where you've been afraid of love, where you've hidden yourself away from intimacy, where there's been some kind of psychological, emotional, or sexual trauma that has led to either bad behavior or addictions or not being able to be completely forthcoming in relationships and really having breakthroughs when it comes to intimacy and vulnerability. For Cancer and Cancer rising, this is happening in your 7th house. So it's kind of all is fair in love and war, especially when it comes to relationships, because it's going to be an opportunity for you to purge and clear and cleanse when it comes to the old storyline for you in relationships. For some, it can be a point of no return in a marriage or a relationship or a business partnership. For others, it can be finally drawing the line and no longer tolerating abusive or toxic relationships, and feeling like you're really ready to kind of upend that, even if that means going at it alone and facing some of your fears alone, especially if you can't have somebody by your side that you're going to feel supported by. And letting go of like cruel patterns when it comes to relationships and finally shutting the door on some people or business partnerships of some kind that's no longer serving you, okay? For Leo and Leo rising, this is happening in your 6th house, which deals with health and wellness, patterns, your daily routine, but it's also about coworkers and your schedule. And for many of you, you're probably either going through the healing process of a separation or a breakup, or some of you guys also may be going through just changes dramatically to your daily routine and realizing that you can't overwork. It can't be all work and no play. Some of you guys are really trying to get serious about healing something, whether that's healing a health issue or possibly getting more serious just about kicking a bad habit and really kicking it to the curb. And sticking with a program or sticking with a routine that makes you feel stronger and healthier. So that way you can show up in the world 110% for your career and your relationships, but you also are going to be facing in the near future some big changes with relationships, because all of the Aquarius energy that's coming after this will build in your 7th. So it'll be a make or break time next month. So you want to kind of get your life in order in a way where you're not being rocked by what's going on with your relationships with other people. You're solid, you know? For Virgo and Virgo rising, it's about moving through an old storyline about heartbreak and healing childhood trauma, issues relating to children. If there's been a need for heart healing and really kind of, you know, cutting to the core of why maybe you've closed your heart off, or rehashing issues revolving around old breakups and whether or not you're willing to be open and vulnerable again. And it's going to lead for you in the near future to healthier habits and a total change in your daily routine for the better. I have a feeling that those of you guys who have been going through like an on and off relationship for a while are finally going to kind of choose you rather than the other person. If you've been back and forth revolving around whether or not you want to launch a creative business, turn a hobby into a hustle, or possibly even consider having a child, some of what you've been moving through is to get to this point where you can make a solid decision that's more heart-based. For Libra and Libra rising, this has been happening in your 4th house of home and family. And many of you guys have been responsible for breaking generational curses, as silly as that sounds. There's a lot of like moving through stuff that you've been carrying with you for a very long time, a lot of reflecting on the past, a lot of needing to look at your roots, where you come from, where you lived, how you were raised, and how that played into patterns that you've carried possibly into your relationships or your home, and whether or not you want to continue this any longer, right? So it's really important to kind of look at your emotions and your feelings. Many of you have also been making big decisions in regards to family members, changes in the family, where you're living, home and dwelling shifts, aesthetically or financially, or still mourning people who have died or people who you've lost. And so what you have to gain from this is, almost as we move into Aquarius season, a real focus and a fixation on happiness, joy, love, having fun, children, and starting new patterns. And like I said, being a generational kind of curse breaker of sorts, right? So in the month ahead, you're going to find that you have the ability to really move through this and find peace, but you have to choose yourself. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, this is going to be happening in your 3rd house. So it's all about communication and powerful communication, ideas, relaying of ideas, how you communicate with others, something in regards to a breakthrough with what you've learned, or some really important course that you've taken, or just really powerful information that you've absorbed, and how you are applying that to how you communicate with other people, especially if it's like neighbors or siblings, or even, you know, how you're communicating with a partner. Because in the month ahead, you're going to need that to be able to better communicate and express yourself emotionally when it comes to your home and your family zone. Whether that's communicating and expressing boundaries, planning a move, or anything revolving around just sharing of ideas and remaining open, rather than feeling like you need to dominate the conversation and control where things are going. For Sag and Sag rising, this is taking place in your 2nd house of resources, income, the money you make, but also your self-esteem. So this is wrapping up what's been several months of really focusing on what you're doing with your money, your self-worth, what gives you power, what you invest your time and your energy into, issues revolving around possibly financial spending. If there's been hang-ups in finances, it's about having a breakthrough. And it can also possibly be about reevaluating your budget before you make any further plans, like a move, purchasing a car, or just anything in regards to investing, possibly even into education, you know, because in the next month, we're going to see all this energy move into your 3rd. So you're probably going to be in a situation where you have a new way of thinking, you're investing more in education, or you're investing more in technology. But I think that it goes deeper than that. It's more about your self-esteem, and perhaps maybe where there's been either spending or eating habits that are somehow tied to trauma, or things that have been kind of out of whack for you. So you're investing more in mindfulness, health, organization, and things that are going to help you kind of feel better, and learning that you are worthy. For Cap and Cap rising, this has been happening in your personal sign, and that's been happening for the better part of the last several months. This is basically a setup for you personally to go through a complete reevaluation of how you look, how you feel, how you love yourself, your body, and share yourself with other people. So this is where you want to be careful, because you want to wield that sword very carefully. The conjunction on your ascendant can have you very passionate. It can have you very intense. It can have you very fixated on controlling yourself and how you behave and how you come across. And it can come across sometimes a little intense with other people. Perhaps maybe you've been so focused on healing and getting back to yourself that now you're in a situation where you're no longer willing to negotiate, or you're no longer willing to sell yourself short. So in the month ahead, you're going to have to focus more on building yourself up, being independent, looking at your finances, and knowing your worth. Hopefully, whatever changes or shifts you've gone through, health or physically, have materialized as you being stronger, wiser, and healthier. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this is happening in your 12th house, which has a lot to do with spiritual healing, renewal. You've probably been feeling a little bit either under the weather, or a little bit in your head, or possibly feeling a little isolated, or maybe you've been working very hard behind the scenes on things, receiving more dreams, information, connection to source, connection to spirit. But you could also just be feeling like you've been totally out of it, and that you haven't been checked in, or that you've been very alone. I guess on the flip side, the Mars-Venus conjunctions happening in your 12th house can be a very private love story and an opportunity for you to be really indulging in a relationship or metaphysical arts or film, television, photography, or working hard on a project that you want to bring to light here in the near future. It's about really participating in the inspirational and spiritual process before you ground out some of these ideas in the month ahead and you show them to the world. Perhaps maybe you've been dealing with some strife or some conflict in relationships with family figures or other people, but you've been doing it very privately, and you are now getting ready to come out of the shadows at the end of this month and going into April, and finally feel like you can release something, show yourself to the world, stand up for yourself, and kind of move into this new and improved version of you. For Pisces and Pisces rising, this is taking place in your 11th house, which deals with hopes, dreams, associations, networking, and friends. So perhaps for some of you, there has been this breakthrough in regards to your goals. Maybe you're looking at some of your friendships and kind of realizing that some of the friendships really aren't cutting it. You may be in a situation where you're reevaluating who you want to hold on to and who you want to let go of. Friends are supposed to be serving as a platform for inspiring you to be more productive and also to collaborate with you and help support where you're going. So you want to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who are building you up, not breaking you down. It's also a time to get really serious about your goals and realize that in order to achieve them, you may actually need to let some people go on the path to, finding yourself again. All in all, I would say that this is very supportive energy for you, Pisces, because you are going to see that later in the spring, especially May and June, why you had to let certain people go will make sense. Why you had to align yourself with certain professional networks or just reevaluate what direction your business goals are going on in general are going to make sense. You're going to be most like the people that you spend time with. And I really want you to think about that. When it comes to friendships, it's probably going to be better to look at it as, having 4 quarters rather than 100 pennies. Because if you really weed out the people who are not building you up, you're going to find that you're going to be able to achieve your dreams and collaborate with people who are like-minded and who also want to change the world. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Let me know, where is this conjunction taking place in your chart? How are you feeling the energy? How are you moving through it? What are you doing to better ground your body? Are you spending time in nature? Are you listening to music? Are you burning a candle? I'm interested just to even see what happens globally over the next couple days. Because on one hand, like I said, it can be a setup for further limitation in April and in May, and almost like excuses for some of the breakdown that's going to be happening in the financial systems. But on the flip side, it can also lead to freedom and liberation and the ability for all of us to come together and find that we all really do share the same values when it comes to what we need for health and happiness and love and abundance, because that's what we're working on this year, guys, with that North Node in Taurus. Hopefully this is helpful. Do consider liking and subscribing to my channel if you like my content. Working hard to put this out for you guys and kind of help you through some of the more challenging energies that are going on this year. I will see all of you guys very soon, and I'm wishing you a very happy week ahead. Take care.